All right, I wanted to get us all started in Stencyl with the same information because I've given different instructions to different classes and changed my mind on a few things. So I just want to be really clear so that everybody knows what's going on. All right, so in the Stencyl unit, we're going to click on Learn Stencyl. That's where you'll find all your instructions for the current assignment. We have, I'm going to put this video right here. So if it looks a little bit different, that's why. We are going to look for a Stencyl icon. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to look on my desktop for a Stencyl icon and I don't see it. So if you're in that boat too, or you don't see a Stencyl icon here or down in your taskbar, here's what you need to do. You're going to open the File Explorer. You're going to click on either Computer or Windows. We actually are going to be wanting Windows. But sometimes it looks like that. So you just click on Computer and then get into Windows. I'm going to double click here. And then look for Program Files 86 and go into that folder. And then look for Stencyl in this folder. And I found it right here. Go into that folder. And then the stencil.exe, we're going to right click. And I like to pin mine to the taskbar. And that gives me the icon down on the taskbar down here. You can also pin to the Start menu, and that will give you Stencyl up here. If you click on the Windows icon, it'll give you Stencyl there. And you can also, if you would like, send it to the desktop and create a shortcut. I actually prefer to keep my desktop more clear than it is, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want to add anything else there. Okay, so we're done with that, and now we can open Stencyl. When you first open Stencyl, which I've opened it before, it will ask you if you, it might say that you don't have permissions for something. Just say fine and get out of that window. It also will probably ask you to log in or create an account. You can if you want, that's fine, but you don't have to. That's mostly for being able to post comments on their forums or post posts on their forums. Okay, so then you should have your first time in, you won't have any games here, and you'll just see click here to create a new game, and usually it's kind of down here in the middle. Okay, at this point, you should open up the activities that we're going to start with. So I know some people already have started with Crash Course 1. That's okay. I want you to actually go ahead and stop and back up and do these activities. I got some advice from a colleague of mine that these are actually a little bit of an easier way to start, and they walk you through a lot of stuff better than this crash course. So we're going to start there. As you go through these activities, we're going to make sure that you download the project files so that you can open them in Stencyl. So I'm going to click here. It tells me all the lessons that I'm going to do, so you'll just keep coming back here each time you need to do a new lesson. I'm going to click Begin. Oh, and by the way, it calls it Activities up here and Lessons down here. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so we're going to begin. These are my instructions. I prefer to view the PDF, but before I do that, I'm going to download my project files that I'm going to need, and I'll just let them save into downloads. Or you can save them to your desktop, whatever you find most convenient. Okay, and then I'm going to read through the instructions, and here's where I want to view my PDF, and then I can make this small. I'm going to drag this over to kind of the middle side of my screen. I'm going to drag this over to the other side of my screen, and now I can go back and forth. I could make this smaller if I wanted, and this bigger if I wanted. Anyway, so there we go. So we're going to make our first game. We're going to launch Stencyl, and then we're going to open up Project 1. That's what we just downloaded. So in Stencyl, we're going to do a File, Import Game, and we're going to find our, this is where downloads are in an inconvenient place. Okay, so I'm going to find my downloads. It might be easiest for you to actually save it to the desktop. It's very much easier to find when you are opening it from here, but you can find downloads folders. You're going to go to Computer. You're going to go to, where's see where you guys like, it's right there. And then you're going to find users. And you're going to find yourself. Okay, so I'm T. O'Malley. And then the your downloads folder is there. Okay, and then, oh my gosh, I have like a billion things in here, so I'm going to see if I can find project 1.stencil. There it is. All right, and I'm going to open that. And now I have this project 1 file in here. So I'm going to open it by double-clicking. And now it's open, and it says, click test game to run the game. So I'm going to look up here. It says it's in the top toolbar. Oh, there it is, way over on the right. So I'm going to click test game. And then it says, after the game appears, move the hero around using the left-right arrow keys. So I'm going to do that once it's done compiling. And by the way, compiling is the computer's way of checking the code before it runs to make sure that there are no mistakes in the code. Okay, so now it's open and I can use my left-right keys. There's my little guy. Anyhow, so just keep following these instructions. Each time you go into a new lesson or activity, whatever you're going to download a new project. So make sure you're doing that each time. Also, in many of the activities, there are optional activities, and those are the things that if you have time, those are the things that are going to make your game really look interesting, and you might not know about them unless you try them. So if you have time, I definitely recommend doing the optional activities. Sometimes they're right there in the writing, and sometimes you have to click a link and you can see some more activities. Okay, I thought I was done, but I'm back for a couple more things. Number 1, I want you guys to rely on each other for help. You may have noticed that it is pretty hard for me to be able to give individual help to everyone who needs it during class. We have some pretty big classes, so I need you to, if you need help, find someone who has figured out what you need to know or is working on the same thing so you can work together. If you've already figured stuff out, be willing to offer help to your fellow classmates. Number 2, experimenting is okay. While I want you to follow the tutorials and do the activities that it's asking you to do, in order so that you're building up your toolkit, so then when you make your own game, you have all of these tools and techniques that you can use to build your game. In order to figure out the challenges that they're giving, you might need to do some experimenting. And don't be afraid of that. That's part of coding, especially when you're first learning, but even with experienced coders. One way to make sure that you're keeping your code safe as you're experimenting is when you get to a point where your game is working how you want it and you want to do some experimenting, save a version. So you might have, platformer version 1, or platformer 1, platformer 2, platformer 3, so that you're keeping that code safe and then allowing yourself to do some experimenting without worrying that you're going to mess up your whole game. Okay, that's all the advice I have for you. Have fun with it and rely on your neighbors and save versions.